So as a new person in Sweden, if you're looking for an area to live or to stay in or to rent, where should you stay? Should you choose a more native area that is comprised of the Swedes and other Caucasians, or should you lean more towards places that has more immigrants, for example, from Eastern Europe, from Africa, or even from the Middle East? What are some of the things that you are dealing with right here? So I thought I would give you some tips or some of the things that I've seen over my 9 years living in Sweden now. See, when you move to Sweden, there are certain areas that people report to be, how do you call it, to be dangerous places. See, but most of these areas are mostly comprised of, immigrants or people who come from other countries. And so in some unfortunate cases, there are crimes, of course, that are committed in this area, like shootings and other problems, but to a minuscule rate. And to the other side, you have the parts that are mostly inhabited by the Caucasians and people who are born or are of a fairer skin. And these areas are purported to be, of course, more safe, and they have more police presence, and you might be tempted to, as an immigrant, to choose to live in the more Swedish areas. And while in some cases this can work, but in the long run, the best place to stay in when you come to Sweden as an outsider or as an immigrant or as a person going to school, look out for the places that has people like you. If you're from Africa or from the Middle East or from Asia, there are places where most of the immigrants live, and some of the places are very nice, and you can have many friends, you can do some cultural exchange, and they're fairly safe. Sweden is a fairly safe country. Even if there's a few crimes here and there, but you cannot compare to other parts of the world. So you're going to have a much more rich experience if you live in a more immigrant neighborhood than if you live in a more native neighborhood. Let's see some of the things that you'll be dealing with. A case in point is, let's say you're talking to your family on the phone and you're yelling at the top of your voice. Well, not at the top of your voice, but of course you are excited and you're talking so loud and laughing. Mostly in an immigrant area, no one is going to call the cops on you and say, oh, my neighbor over there is yelling on the phone too much. I want you to go and stop him from yelling on the phone. Or they will not come and knock on your door and tell you to stop speaking on the phone loudly. If you're calling your family from Nigeria, you can do that at your own free will, and you will have no problems with that. And also, if you have kids, they will have more friends from many more other countries. If you're African, you're going to have more friends from, your kids are going to be friends with people from Somali kids, some little bit of the Arab kids too, people from Islam. It's a mixture of more diverse environment, and you're going to feel much more at home than if you live in a more native or Caucasian area. And the other thing that you will not face a challenge with is people asking you, where do you work? People always like asking you, where do you work? I've dealt with some of these questions in my previous video. You can check it out. And in an immigrant area, your neighbor will not ask you, where do you work? Because they were with you in the night shift at 2 a.m., maybe going to work somewhere at night, or they were with you at 1 a.m., finishing the last shift of the evening job that you have. They probably see you coming in and out. And so that during day in the morning, if you're just taking a little bit of sunshine outside, or just sitting a little bit to recuperate for the evening shift, they won't therefore assume that you are actually not working, or that you are just living off of the government. So just because they know, and they're probably seen you in the same tram, and because they have been doing the same job, Meanwhile, on the other side, if you live with a more Caucasian, if you live in a more Caucasian neighborhood, they might be asking you where you work because they see you in the morning, you're chilling, you're drinking coffee, trying to plan how you're going to do your night shift, because they were at work, and they didn't see you. Or by the time you're going to work at night, they're already sleeping. Kind of different kind of experience and time to. And also, when it comes to having parties, if you live in a more immigrant neighborhood, no one is going to call the cops on you. Most probably, no one will call the cops on you if you're playing a little bit of loud music towards the end of the day, or that you're having many people coming over. Well, if you live in a more Caucasian neighborhood, if you have 2, 3, 4, 5 friends coming over, already someone has called the cops on you. They're wondering, there's just too many Africans in this one area. What are they doing? And before you know, the police is there trying to look around and trying to come and see, what are you guys doing? Are you guys smoking weed, or are you doing any illegal activity? Which in most cases is not. You guys are just having some fun on a Saturday evening. So it is, of course, it makes it more attractive to live on more on the more immigrant area, of course. The thing to look at is, of course, the aspect of racism, or making you feel othered, or that you do not belong in a place. You see, if you live in a more immigrant area, no one cares about you. Your neighbor is probably from Kazakhstan or Iran or somewhere. It doesn't really care much that you are living in the same area with them. But if you live in other places of Caucasian, they're going to be always very wary about you, even if you're a nice person. And just imagine, even if you're a good person, you have to keep on constantly proving to these people that, look, I'm a nice person. No one wants to live that kind of life. So the best trick and the best place to ensure that you have a more healthier kind of life is look out for, if you're an immigrant, look out for the immigrant areas. Most probably you will also be having cheaper rent to pay compared to the more Caucasian areas, and you will have a more kind of comprehensive social experience, because you probably meet people like you who think like you, who are facing the same challenges, and they can coach you on how to deal with these challenges, because they have probably been through it several times. And there is no better teacher than experience, of course. So you can always learn from these people. And so, are you still facing that question of where to live if you are an immigrant or not? I will save you the energy. Do not get hoodwinked into thinking, oh, the Swedish area is more safe, because you will have so many questions to answer. You will always be under continuous evaluation, a daily evaluation. The neighbors are keeping their eyes on you. They've seen you have your friends over. They want to know, you understand what I'm saying? So just stay in the more immigrant area. If you have kids, they live in a more immigrant area, and then they will have more friends there. And later you can move on from there. If maybe later down the road you find a better place to stay, or in a more upscale place where you can afford to live, then you can move there. But when you are newly coming into Sweden and you want to settle down, stay in the more immigrant areas. Just make sure that you develop nice ways of learning the language itself, or trying to educate yourself, and just learning how the Swedish system works, so that you do not get excluded from the mainstream. This is the only way you can have a more happier life living in Sweden. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, and see you in the next one.